Hello and welcome to the Rankers podcast, a podcast where we rank literally anything and everything. It's just two best friends ranking it up. My name is Jacob.
And my name is Nick. Let's rank them.
Let's rank them, Nick. How's it going, man?
Dude, it's going good. Jay chilling in the crib on this Memorial Day. Got the coffee in hand, just ready to rank some things.
Yes. Happy Memorial Day to everybody. I don't know when exactly this podcast will release, but we are recording on Memorial Day. And as you can see, if you're watching on YouTube, I have a little bit of a different setup. It's my mobile setup. We took a little holiday weekend.
It's a good looking mobile setup.
Thanks, man. Thanks.
Nice.
It's nice and simple and neutral in the background, instead of a closet behind me, which is normally what it is.
True.
So if my
yeah,
audio,
I typically get to pick on you for that.
You do. If my audio sounds a little bit different, that is why. But thank you guys so much for joining and listening in. We just want to let you know, if you're a first-time listener, welcome to the Rankers podcast. And we want to let you know that we are on Instagram and we are on Twitter. And if you want to watch our podcast, if you'd rather watch the episode instead of listen, you can look us up on YouTube. Just look up the Rankers podcast. And if you're not on social media, if you're not on any of that, and for some reason you want to get in touch with us, you can always email us at therankerspodcast@gmail.com. And please go ahead and leave us a review and rate us on any of the platforms that you're listening on, because that super duper helps us out and it helps us get this podcast out to more and more people. But
definitely, I second all of that. Great job.
Yes. Thanks, Nick. So with that out of the way, we have another guest with us. And
yes, we do.
Go ahead, Nick. Sorry.
I was going to say, this guest, I think, is one of somebody that's very close to you. So why don't you just go ahead and introduce him, and then we'll get into it.
Yeah. So this guest is actually my brother-in-law. I married his sister this past year, and he's not only my brother-in-law, but has become a very dear friend of mine, somebody I care about a lot. And it is Jack McRee. What's going on, Jack?
What is up, Jack?
Hey, it's good to be here. Long-time listener of the Rankers pod.
Yeah.
First-time guest.
That means so much to us.
It does.
It does.
Shout out the coffee episode, the pizza episode, two of my favorites. But
yeah.
honored to be here and join you guys today.
Dang.
Yeah,
those are definitely pretty fun episodes, the pizza and coffee. But yeah, dude, we're excited that you're here. Sorry, Jacob, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, we're fine. I was just gonna say, you mentioned the pizza pod episode. Jack actually tried when he was visiting up here, and he tried one of the pizza places on my list when we were together, and he was a big fan. So
nice. Congrats. The list
New York pizza.
New York pizza, man.
Glad to see our lists are paying off out there.
That's right. So Jack, man, why don't you, this is a big episode because we are ranking our top 10 favorite movies of all time. And Jack, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, and then just a little bit of why you are on this podcast in particular?
Sure thing. So I'm a longtime movie buff, movie fan. Have always been super into movies. As a kid, I was the kid running around with a video camera, making home movies with Legos and action figures and everything else you can think of.
Nice. That's awesome.
And so much of a fan that I've made a little bit of a career out of it. So I've kind of pursued film throughout my career. I'm now a producer with Disney's advertising agency. So still kind of connected to that film and production world where we make commercials for Walt Disney World, the parks, the cruise line, anything Disney vacation. So still love production and movies and everything that comes along with it. So today I think we're here to talk our top 10 favorite movies.
Yeah. That's pretty awesome. One, that's a super cool job just to begin with. Anybody that says that they work with Disney, I just automatically think they're cool. So you got my stamp of approval. Secondly, it's Disney. Some of the greatest movies of all time came from there, and you're working there.
Yeah.
So that's super cool. I might have some Disney picks, might not. We'll see.
We will
It's
see.
funny because spoiler, I don't think any of my top 10 are Disney picks.
I was gonna wait until the end to say that, but I was thinking the whole time, I bet you he does not have one Disney movie on his list.
I'll do a separate Disney list of Disney movies I love. But
there you go.
Not quite my top 10.
Dang.
So, right, we're going to go ahead and get into it. And I just want to lay a couple of what we're just going to call some of the ground rules that we set before we started recording and as we were all making this list. And I kind of knew Jack was going to be on this pod. I actually asked him a while back because he is such a movie buff, and we've got to discuss movies some over time since we've known each other. But I do want to say a couple things. The main thing that I want to let the listeners know is that we are going to include like sagas or trilogies, and kind of just multiple movies together as one pick. Yeah. So that's kind of the main, like, if you hear that and you're like, whoa, I'm just letting you know up front, that's probably how it's going to be. And some of these sagas maybe that are on, a list, we may end up like ranking those sagas one day as a separate pod or something like that, which will be super fun. But I just wanted to let the listeners know that up front. It's kind of the main catch.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and just the point of that is just so we have more diversity like in our picks, because one, I mean, then you get to see more, because if one of us really likes, let's just use Star Wars, for example, you could have like 5, Star Wars movies in this top list. So we are just trying to make it a little bit more, seeing other things and seeing other options out there.
For sure.
And then obviously, as always, everything is subjective. This is Jacob and I's and Jack's our personal favorite movies of all time, top 10. So we're not saying that these are the best ever, but maybe we are. I don't know if we can make a good enough argument.
That's why we're here. Yeah.
That's why we're here. We're trying to convince you. But without further ado, we ready for this?
Yeah, let's do it. Jack, nice. We always let our guests go first. So why don't you start us off with your number 10?
Sure thing. So first of all, shout out Letterboxd, big Letterboxd user of the film app. So you can kind of consolidate all of your movie ratings there. So that's kind of how I used as a base for my ranking. So at number 10, this is actually a new addition to my top 10, but the more I think about this movie, it's definitely one of my personal favorites, and it's Boyhood, the Richard Linklater movie. Came out about 10 years ago. And so the movie follows kind of the first 18 years of a boy's life. And they actually filmed it over 18 years, or 13 years. You see it starts when he's like 5 or 6 or something like that. So you see the actors grow up throughout the course of the movie. What I thought was super cool about it is that it actually tracked like with my age. So it like tracks perfectly year for year and where I was in this time. So in like 2000, it's like the boy's the same age as I was. And so just a super cool, like unique approach to filmmaking that I think you see people grow up in front of your eyes. It's a super just cool slice of life movie. So an understated film, but I'm going to put it in my top 10.
Yeah, nice. That's a great pick. I have not seen the film, but I have definitely heard of it, and I've heard a lot about it. And that it's really cool because that's kind of like when you want to tell a story like that, normally it would be like a TV show where you watch a character grow up. But
that's what I was thinking, like a movie as well.
Right. What they were able to do was catch that. It's Ethan Hawke, right? He's in that movie, right?
He's the dad. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm a big Ethan Hawke fan, but he kind of just watching that progression of somebody grow up and just all the stuff that he faces. Like I said, I've heard a lot about the movie, but I haven't seen it. So that's a really good pick.
Yeah. All the music and cultural references are super timely. It's pretty neat flick. Yeah. So that's my number 10.
It's interesting you say the personal note too, because of how it was kind of tracked with your age. I think that's cool.
Yeah. That's a really good pick. I haven't seen the movie either. But so is it actually like his life, or is it,
No, it's not a documentary. It's fictionalized. I think they had an outline of kind of where it was headed from the beginning. But again,
they use the same actor through the 13 years.
So you see him through 13 years grow. I think they shot like a week every summer or something. So yeah, it's definitely worth checking out. And again, like the personal note for me being that it like tracked perfectly with my childhood. It's probably why it's in my personal top 10.
This is great too, because I'm excited to watch these movies that I haven't seen that may be on y'all's list. So I'm really excited about that. But that's a great number 10, Jack. That's awesome. Nick, why don't you go ahead and do your number 10?
Well, I don't think I'm going to have any movies that you haven't seen, but
Nick is going to have the mainstream list.
Oh yeah, for sure. But yeah, so number 10 for me, this is a nostalgic pick, and it's one that I watch every single year without fail, and it is Elf. It is a Christmas movie, one of the best Christmas movie to me, might be arguable. But Elf is one of my favorite movies. I've watched it every year, like I just said. Will Ferrell is in his prime, and again, it's more of a nostalgic pick for me. But I would say that it just has a great mixture of your Christmas feels. You obviously feel like you're watching it in Christmas. I don't. Sometimes, I mean, I'll even watch it randomly throughout the year, but most of the time.
That was going to be my question. Can you watch it not during Christmas?
Yeah, I have before. I've probably, it's funny because I also say that I don't like going back and watching things more than once, which we learned in that first superheroes movie. And I was like, oh my gosh, Josh has seen these like 15 times.
Yeah.
But I will say Elf is actually one of those movies that I do go back and watch. But yeah, it's always a feel good story. And that's why it's at the bottom of my top 10, but it had to make it just for the nostalgic pick.
Elf is a really good pick. I did not include any Christmas movies on my list. But I don't think that they would make the top 10 anyway. Although I do love, but I wanted to save that for, inevitably when we get to that list. But Elf would definitely be, I think, in a lot of people's at least top 5 Christmas movies. I mean, it's an absolute classic. I think it's my wife's favorite. It's either that one or The Grinch for her, but Elf is, it's Jon Favreau and all of what they were able to do. And you just don't really get tired of it, especially if you only watch it like once a year around Christmas. It's perfect. So,
well, and also like how I kind of did this list, which we didn't really talk about, but I looked at movies that I've seen either the most or what I've watched all throughout just growing up. And then also how the movie actually looks in itself and what the actors are doing and all. I try to look at everything, but with Elf, it was more of the nostalgic pick.
Yeah, I like that pick a lot, just to kind of bounce off of what you're talking about, why we rank this list, or like kind of the criteria that we use. A lot of mine was based on like overall enjoyment, obviously, but I am the opposite of Nick. I love rewatching movies. It's one of my favorite things to do, and if it's a movie that I love, I rewatch it constantly in a lot of different ways. And so, but I also looked at story, acting. I'm a very emotional person, so I looked at like the emotional reaction that it gets from me, and then nostalgia was also a big thing. Jack, before we keep going, did you have any sort of criteria?
I said I had Letterboxd, which I've logged, I think, every movie I've ever seen, so and rated most of them, so that kind of served as my starting point.
That's how I knew you were legit.
Kind of running top 100 on there.
Yeah.
Nice.
Okay.
As soon as you said like I have this app where I rate movies, I'm like, oh shoot, we got the right guy up in here for this podcast. That's awesome.
And you pretty much update it as you see them, right? Because that's kind of the way that the app works.
That's pretty cool. I'm gonna have to get that app.
Yeah. All right. Well, we will keep going. I will go to my number 10. My number 10 is the Star Wars saga. And so this was actually one of the
that seems low for you.
Well, this was actually, interestingly enough, it was one of the main pick that I went all kinds of different places. So as I was making my list, at one point it didn't make my list, and at one point it made my list and it was much higher than number 10, like much closer to 1. And so I went all different kinds of directions. And the reason why it was so difficult for me to put this pick in concrete somewhere is because of how frustrated I get when I watch some of these movies and like the storylines and all that kind of stuff. And so I'm definitely I'm a prequel kid. And so I grew up watching the prequels and everything. And so I'm not as out on those as a lot of people who love the originals and all that kind of stuff. And I'm aware of all of the filmmaking reasonings to why those movies aren't great, but those were the ones that I knew and I loved. And I have such a respect for the originals and I love them. And then I like watching the newer ones because it's made so well and there's such good acting and there's such good visuals and directions, but the storyline of the newer ones frustrate me. And so I was so bogged, but then I came to this conclusion. I was like, but I watch Star Wars at least once a year because I love those movies. And so I was like, it has to be on my list because this was just such a big part of my childhood. And the Star Wars universe that was first created by Lucas, you know, is such a big part of my life now. And I'm just enthralled with the Star Wars universe, and what Disney is doing with it now is really incredible, with all of the different anthologies and the shows and you know, the movies that they're going to come out with. And it's really because of my love of these characters and the world that is created. Arguably, this isn't this list, but arguably the greatest film score of all time. I'm not ready to say that definitively yet, but it would definitely have to be up there. What John Williams does is unmatched in these movies. And
Dude,
so
I'm really surprised that you had this at number 10. I thought you would have it higher. I mean, we literally just did a whole podcast on just characters.
We did, yeah. And because I love this universe and I love these movies, but as far as like me watching a movie 9 through 1, when I sit down and watch those movies, I love them more than I do. It's more of like the Star Wars universe is what I love the most, if that makes any sense. And so, you know, we would rank the movies in a different time, but I had to put the whole saga on my list because it's just such a big part of my life. So that's my number 10.
Did ranking them as a group put them higher or lower on your list? Like if you could take one out, would it end up higher than your number 10, or would you?
I think putting them together was actually what got them on my list. Because there's more than one movie, probably. There's one in particular, but I won't say it because that'll spoil it later. There's one movie in particular that I just almost, if it wasn't for like my OCD and I have to watch all of it from beginning to end, I would probably skip over it because I think it's horrible. But I watch it anyway. But if like I said, putting them all together kind of leveled out my frustration. And actually, I think if I chose a single one, I don't think there's a single Star Wars movie that I love to watch more than my 9 through 1, if that makes sense. So
yeah, that makes sense.
I had to put it on the list though, for sure. But that's my number 10. Jack, why don't we get to your number 9?
Cool. Number 9, we're going for a little bit of a throwback to the golden age of the Hollywood musical. I'm going with Singing in the Rain.
Wow.
So this is just like
nice
1950s musicals at their best. It's over the top. It's bright colors and big dance numbers and Gene Kelly just doing his thing. So I wanted to put at least one kind of old school musical in here because those movies are so kinetic, and just like the over the top kind of spectacle of it all, I think sets up a lot of things that we see in today's cinema, and just like the spectacle that is the 50s musical to me is something that really sticks with me. So number 9, Singing in the Rain.
What is your rewatchability for that one? Or do you go back to that one a good bit?
I actually do, surprisingly. And I'm not a huge rewatcher.
Right.
I would say outside of this top 10 list, I really don't like rewatching movies if I can help it. I'll usually put them on the background or something. But Singing in the Rain is one if I like need like a comfort movie on, just like while I'm at home on like a chill night. It's like just put something on the background for some good vibes. Singing in the Rain will get me there. So yeah, I'll rewatch this a couple times a year.
Nice.
I was actually interested to see what Google had to say with just I looked up top box office movies, and I saw I was looking through those, and then it led me to another just like all-time list. I think it was like the IMDb list, whatever. But I saw Singing in the Rain, and I was like, oh my gosh, dude, I freaking remember this movie. And I literally kind of thought about putting it on here, which is funny that you said that movie.
Well, it's not only what Singing in the Rain is by itself, but we can't begin to imagine the influence that it has had probably on the rest of, you know, so much of modern cinema. That's what I love so much about movies, is every movie is better because of the one that came before it, you know, and that obviously doesn't go for every single film created, but we have so many great movies today because of, like Jack said, the golden age of like the musical cinema and just Hollywood back in those days, and what they were able to do with film. So that is really, I'm glad that you got a throwback pick on there. That's fantastic.
I would say with that reasoning, yes, as far as technology and advancement in just graphics in general, or CGI, whatever it is, but like, Yeah, no, there's definitely some movies that like the first one's way better than the second and third one.
Sure, absolutely.
You know?
Yeah, remaking is a challenge.
Remakes.
But Nick, why
Which-
don't you do your
Which
number 9?
leads me into talking about Batman. My number 9 is The Dark Knight. And I put
Nice.
I didn't want to put series necessarily with this one because there are so many Batmans out there. Just go listen to another recent podcast that we've done, another one with Josh.
Yes. Hasn't dropped yet as of this recording, but it will be out.
That's my fault. My fault.
No, you're good. You're good.
So we be on the lookout for a Batman podcast, y'all.
Yeah.
But anyways, so even having that conversation and going through that just made me realize how much is going on in the Batman series and Saga, and that there's different makers, different actors, the whole 9 yards. I mean, Batman's been a thing for a long time, obviously. So I just struggled with saying Batman series. But in specific, I just wanted to say The Dark Knight because The Dark Knight is my number 9. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. Obviously, it made my top 10 list. It's Heath Ledger at his best. I think that this movie has everything as far as just like it keeps me engaged in the movie the whole entire time. And it's another movie that I can go back and watch again, something that I don't really do, but I can do this with The Dark Knight. And again, I really love this movie. And I think that again, the Joker and Heath Ledger in this movie is literally just at his best. And I don't even know what else to say about it. What can we say about it?
What can we say? Yeah, well, I think Nolan creates his films so that not necessarily you can watch them over and over again and like just enjoy them, but so that you can watch them more times because you get more out of it the more that you watch it. That's what I found with specifically that Batman trilogy, which I love, is that every time I watch it, I find something that I missed the time before.
Yeah.
And like I've only seen Tenet one time, and I really need to go back and watch it because I have no idea. The same thing with Inception. I need to watch those movies like 10 more times to, I think, really understand.
Inception really does work that way. Yeah.
It's how Nolan enjoys making films, and something that he does that really nobody else in this time and this age can do.
He's just a psychological genius. And
And so what a perfect character for him to take on, like the Joker, to kind of tell the story. And yeah, I mean, The Dark Knight is not only does it not surprise me that it's a favorite on the list, but it should be on the list as one of the best, in my opinion. Such a great film.
And just like I said, just by itself is so great. Even if you're saying that trilogy of Batman, like I feel like I can't even say that because I don't even remember the the other ones in
No,
that
I
trilogy.
agree. It stands alone.
Like The Dark Knight really just stands alone. But
yeah,
that's my number 9.
Nice. All right. My number 9. So I don't know, Jack, are you familiar with what we call on this show a Jake take?
No, you're gonna have to enlighten me to the Jake take.
It's pretty simple. A Jake take is just another way of saying a hot take. And so we came up because on our first 10 episodes, I said the words hot takes so many times that we just wanted to name it something else. I was kind of the hot take guy because I would go, I think this pick is going to be a hot take. And it ended up being like all of my picks. So that's what I call a hot take.
He said hot take all the time. And I would say like, what can we say about this or something?
Yeah. We have our little,
so
things, but speaking of that,
a Jake take,
this is probably a Jake take. Again, I have to emphasize this list is subjective. So these are my favorite movies. I'm not saying these are the best, but my number 9, I don't know if you guys have seen it, but it's a movie called The Other Guys. And it is a comedy, and it is going to be my main comedy on the list. I'll go ahead and spoil that. But so this movie is just one of my favorite movies of all time. And I think it's because I think the humor, obviously Adam McKay, who's the director, he's made a bunch of movies with like Will Ferrell, and he made like Talladega Nights and Step Brothers and so many other of those like kind of raunchy is what they would be called type comedies that are really, really funny. And The Other Guys, for some reason, I don't think it gets appreciated enough for the comedy that it does. And I think the reason it's on my list and why I love it so much is because it is, out of his movies, in my opinion, it's the least in your face humor. And it's this type of humor that if you like blink, you like miss it, or it's not like this obvious. It's so dry, and there will be these like little like one-liner things. Like, I don't know if you guys have seen the movies, but any listener who knows, like the fact that Michael Keaton's character, he's like the chief of police, that he just quotes TLC songs the whole time, and he acts like he doesn't know that he's like that. That's not an obvious joke, but I just cackle at those little types of things every time. And I love that McKay took an action star like Wahlberg and put him, you know, kind of across the table from Farrell, who is like a comedic legend, and the way that they work with each other. And there's a scene where, you know, they're kind of arguing. Pretty much any scene that they're arguing in the movie that is hilarious. But there's a particular scene, I won't explain the whole thing for time's sake, but they're at the desk, and it's the scene that ends with Mark Wahlberg's character throwing coffee on Will Ferrell's character, and they just have this incredible dialogue. And it's actually a pretty good story for a comedy movie. It's actually a pretty interesting story that keeps you engaged. But this pick is so personal because the humor in it, I just absolutely think is hilarious, and I will watch it time and time again and still get the same comedic reaction. It's one of my favorites. Have you guys seen the movie?
Oh yeah, that was big kind of in my like middle school years. But again,
2010.
Yeah, right now that was early high school. We're good.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was one that like didn't get as much of the shine as a lot of the other kind of raunchy comedies and that The Hangover and that kind of stuff. But I remember it being super quotable. Like, I think, like I remember my friends always like quoting that movie like crazy. Like, I think our Call of Duty clan in high school was like based off the Little River Band because of that movie. Like, little stuff like that still sticks with me. And yeah, that's a good pick for the 2010s comedy space.
It's definitely quotable. That's a good way. That's a good way of picking it. When they're driving in the Prius and Mark Wahlberg's character says, "I feel like I'm going shopping for a training bra." So many good lines in that movie. Goodness. I just love it. Nick, have you seen it?
No, I haven't seen this movie.
Oh man, this is one you got to go watch. It's so funny.
Yeah, I'll have to check it out.
But that's my number 9.
2010 years was growing up in a homeschool household. I don't think anything like that was.
Yeah, that one probably didn't make the homeschool.
It didn't make the list for me.
Oh man, that's great. All right.
Christian atmosphere.
Well, I think we're on to number 8. So Jack, let's hear
it. So we're gonna keep the Nolan train going here.
Nice.
And this movie, I think, sets the groundwork for a lot of what we see in the Batman films. This is The Prestige. So The Prestige for me, like that kind of introduced that whole idea that Nolan's so good at, of like every time you watch the movie, you see something different, you pick up on something different, you watch it differently every time you see it. To me, just opened my eyes to like his forte of filmmaking. So The Prestige, you see a lot of the same cast that we see in the Batman movies. You have some Christian Bale, Michael Caine. Again, I think it sets a lot of the stage for what we see in Inception and the Dark Knight trilogy, and just spot on Chris Nolan shining in The Prestige. So that's my number 8.
Jack, what would you call, I don't know if there's a name for it, but that the filmmaking style that really, I think Nolan kind of pioneered, but where he sort of told the story like non-linear, I guess is what you call it. He does it in Batman Begins, where he's telling the origin of Batman, but he's bouncing back and forth. I don't know if there's a certain name for that kind of storytelling.
Yeah, I mean, I think a non-linear structure is a good way to kind of wrap up what he's so good at. I mean, he does it like super to the extreme in Memento, which came before Prestige, and really breaks a lot of just like narrative linear rules and that, and you're bouncing all over the place. The whole point of the movie is you don't know what's going on and when it's happening. So yeah, I think he's super good at I don't know, I call it like dimensional filmmaking, because he's telling the story on different levels at the same time. So good at that.
It sounds like something I would like. I haven't seen this one either though.
It's very I've seen it once, which I need to go back and watch it again. But I definitely, when Jack was talking about the Batman, kind of how he sort of went into that, it's definitely very similar in a lot of those ways. It's very good. It's got Hugh Jackman too, which he's incredible in it. But the cast and the story is like, it'll blow your mind. It's really good. Great pick, Jack.
Yeah, you're in for a treat.
All right,
Nick.
Wait.
Let's hear number 8.
In the year 2000, Russell Crowe said, "My name is Maximus Decimus Meridius."
Oh man,
let's go.
and I will have my vengeance in this life or the next. And that pick is Gladiator.
Yeah.
Gladiator is an all-time great to me. Growing up watching this movie, actually something that did make the homeschool Christian list, watching Gladiator. Have you heard? Well, maybe not. So local to us where we are in Atlanta area, there is a hockey team called the Atlanta Gladiators, and my dad actually works for them, and he does a lot of their just production and media, and he's been working for them, since I was like in elementary school. And so Gladiator and this movie and this scene, I have probably seen like 100 million times, just like going to games and hearing my dad like edit in the background. And it always makes me want to go watch the movie because I see like little clips that like he'll post like for their media or whatever. I'm like, oh man, I got to go watch this. So this is a movie that I've seen lots and lots of times. It's just got a really good underdog story, and it's got everything that like, one, it's obviously a very gory movie. I think it's rated R. But it's got your healthy mix of fight scenes, and just there's literally a fight scene every couple of seconds. Have you guys seen this movie?
Yeah, I'm surprised it made the homeschool cut for you, but yeah, it is.
Yeah, I know, that's what I was saying.
Super violent, but yeah, all-time epic movie for sure.
There's those movies that I call these the in order to be a man, you need to watch these movies, and it's Gladiator, The Patriot,
Godfather.
What is the other? What's the other Mel Gibson, the blue paint movie?
Braveheart.
Braveheart. Yeah, there's just like movies that you need to watch, like to just to be a man. Gladiator is such a good film, and I love those old, like the kind of the period.
I'm a big like the Russell Crowe, Mel Gibson, like, but I mean both of those movies, Braveheart, like Gladiator. I'm a big fan of those kind of movies. Grew up watching them with my dad. But yeah, Gladiator had to make the list for me.
And Best Picture too, right? That won Best Picture.
Oh yeah,
if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
I think
it's got a lot of. We have it on TBD, and I know it's got some sort of the little nominee thing on it for sure.
Yeah.
That falls in the Sunday afternoon TNT movie bucket too.
Right.
I feel like it's on TNT every Sunday afternoon still.
Oh yeah.
With all those other guy movies for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Great pick, Nick.
All right. So we are on to your number 8.
All right. Yeah. So my number 8, Nick, I'm going to say that I'd highly doubt. I mean, you might have, but I don't think you've seen this. Jack, I know you've seen this because you watched it for the first time with me, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, no.
But my number 8 is a movie called Clue. And Clue is the
based off of the board game movie.
Yes, it's but it was made in 1985. And so they're actually
I think I saw a recent one.
Well, they have put in, there have been like different like murder mystery like movies that have come out that have kind of taken from that original like the board game and stuff, and they're actually remaking Clue. They've put it into like pre-production and stuff, which I'm very excited about.
I don't know. I've seen something recently about Clue again.
But the board game came first. But this movie, I'll be quick because it's not, for some reason, it's not incredibly popular, but I think it is such an amazing movie. This is definitely my most nostalgic pick. So, Nick, you were talking about your homeschool years. So I was homeschooled from like preschool to about 4th grade. And we would get done pretty early in the afternoon. We would get done a little bit after lunch, and that would be our day. And I remember if it wasn't, because as a kid, my generation, you guys know, growing up, it's not like how it is today. We were outside all the time growing up. And so if I wasn't outside, if it was like raining or I couldn't be outside for some reason, I would get done with school. I would go upstairs to my room and I would watch Clue. And I just watched it over and over again. I thought it was so funny. I think that Tim Curry, he plays the butler, and I think he gives this performance that is extremely underrated. And the scene towards the end of the movie where the butler tells the rest of the dinner party, the people there, he's like, okay, I figured it out. And they're all like, what? And then he takes them through the whole entire thing of how he figures out the mystery. And there's music where he's running back and forth in the house, and he's going through the secret passages and trying to figure out who murdered who. It's just absolutely brilliant. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. It is just, it's kind of that nostalgic pick for me, for sure. It's just one that, it's definitely not the best movie of all time. It's not very long, and it's 85 and stuff, and there's different things. But it's all just in that house, and I can almost quote the movie. I've watched it so many times. One of my favorites. So my number 8 is Clue.
I had a movie like that, The Haunted Mansion with Eddie Murphy.
Yeah.
Have you seen that one? Yeah, that was a movie that I watched a lot. That was kind of your mysterious type.
Yeah, but the remake
is
of
it anything
Clue,
like that, or
there's similarities. I don't think there's nothing like supernatural in Clue. It's all practical and stuff, but there's definitely similarities with like the spookiness of it and the way that they utilize the house that they're in and all that kind of stuff.
And my list is already up to like 4 movies I gotta watch, and we're only through number 8.
Yeah, Jacob introduced that one to me, and it's definitely worth a watch. That was a hidden gem that I hadn't seen before. But
yeah, like I said, it's
so fun.
It's a quick watch, and it's a lot of fun. So Clue's my number 8.
Pick. That's a good
all right.
Pick. We're
Jack,
cool. Moving right along.
My number 7 is Baby Driver. So fairly recent movie, but this one super fun. It's 0 to 100 from the first scene.
Literally.
So, I mean, literally. So, and it never lets its foot off the gas. So great soundtrack. Like I said, great energy from start to finish, good cast. I think another thing about this movie is it came out when I was in college in Atlanta, and it was shot in Atlanta. So a lot of recognizable landmarks of coffee shops we went to, and all this, like he works at a pizza place that was like where we went freshman year to get pizza every night. It was just those little references again make it, I think, have some extra punch in my personal top 10. But yeah, Baby Driver, definitely one of my faves.
I actually just watched that for the first time a few weeks ago, and I loved it. Maddie had seen it before. I love Edgar Wright. An honorable mention for me is Scott Pilgrim versus the World, which I don't know if you guys have seen, but the way that Edgar Wright directs, and he's completely, so many of his ideas are novel. I mean, he creates stuff out of thin air. It seems like the way that he does filmmaking, and I, for some reason, and I was talking to Maddie about this the other day, but I have for some reason just become an Ansel Elgort, like humongous fan. Everything I'm watching the show out on HBO Max right now, Tokyo Vice, which he's in, just everything he's in. And he was the reason I watched West Side Story, and also because I heard it was so good. But yeah, I just love him as an actor. And that was kind of one of his, that was his earlier stuff, because he's kind of recently sort of come out to be big. But that movie was like nonstop the whole time. I was like, what is happening? This is fantastic, and better than any of the Fast and the Furious car stuff. And they have like a billion movies, but that movie, what they're able to do, and it's all practical. Great pick. Love that movie.
Nice.
Yeah. All right. So it's you, Nick, right?
Yeah. We are on to my number 7. And my number 7 is a series. I'm introducing for a series for the first time, and it is Back to the Future. Throwback to the 80s, Back to the Future. All 3 of them are great. Number 3 would probably be my favorite. It's got more of a Western feel to it. But you got homeboy Michael J. Fox, Christopher Lloyd. The third one I'm looking at came out in 1990. So late 80s, early 90s. But Back to the Future did great then, and it's still doing good now. Another one of those movies that you might catch on the TLC Sunday afternoon, playing all 3 of them in a row. Yep. But man, I love Back to the Future. I've seen them also many times. It's funny. I guess my list is starting to keep saying that I've seen them multiple times. But yeah, no, Back to the Future is great, and I love everything about them. And 3 would probably have to be my favorite one. So.
One of my favorite movie soundtracks for sure. Like that theme song every time it kicks in, like that to me is that's Hollywood.
Just everything about it is, it just sets up. I think it's one of those movies that does series, I guess, that sets up Hollywood, because everyone knows that car, everyone it just has that good Hollywood feel, and like, it's just famous. It's got famous lines in it. It's got the good guy versus bad guy, and it's got an adventure. It's just kind of one of those movies that just set up Hollywood, I think. And it's a memorable one, and it's one that I will continue to watch for a long time. So Number 2 is kind of trash, but we'll forget about that one because nobody likes Buff anyways.
Yeah, my only comment was gonna be I like Back to the Future. It was one of those things that I just kind of didn't share everybody's zeal for the movies. I thought they were fine, but I liked the first one. But then I remember watching the second one and thinking it was pretty bad. I did not enjoy it, and I have yet to watch the third one because I was so put off by the second one. But I definitely will because I have heard that it's better.
Great. Yeah.
But I definitely respect that pick.
Well, they chose to go. I don't know why they really chose to go this route with number 2. They just made kind of like I said, good guy versus bad guy. They made the bad guy Buff. He's just kind of like your school bully.
Right.
But they made it look like if they went back in time and changed something, and he had gotten like a sports almanac where he like found out because he went back into the future, and so he was like, they went back and it found out that he was super rich and just like running this city, and it was just like, oh, I hate everything about this. The bad guy's like in charge, you know. So that's why that movie is definitely least favorite. But yeah, number 1 is obviously the classic one, and number 3 is I'll definitely put that in the number 2 slot as far as being 1's the best, and then 3, and then 2. So
nice, great pick. Great pick. All right, keeping it going with the franchises or sagas here. My number 7 is the Harry Potter saga. And so this is...
Glad it made your list.
Yes, it definitely made my list. This is one, I'll be honest. So I'm a big Harry Potter fan. I would say my wife, Maddie, is a bigger Harry Potter fan. And people may be shocked by this, but we do a Harry Potter marathon together at least twice a year. We go back and that's, there's like mind, 8 honestly. Movies. There's a lot of Harry Potter. And so
there's 8 because the last one's a 2-parter.
Right. And so it's we love these movies, and I was kind of late to the party. So I'm actually super jealous because Maddie tells me about how she remembers going to see like Deathly Hallows Part 2 in the theaters, and how crazy the ending of Part 1 was, and just waiting for Part 2. I wasn't really a fan back then. And so I kind of became a fan later as I watched the movies and was kind of like, oh man, these are really good. So I watched them, and then I'm not finished reading the books, but I'm like in the middle of the 5th book, Order of the Phoenix. And so I've fallen in love with those 2. I can just watch a movie much faster than I can read a book because I'm a really slow reader. But the universe that J.K. Rowling set up is just incredible. And the story that she tells, I love that, there are so many details. And this has to be one of the most, like, probably other than like George Lucas, but this author adaptation, she was so involved in the film and in the production of the film and what was said. And I can just imagine that there were little tiny details that probably nobody would notice, but she was like, it has to be this way just because it has to be this way. And she has such a grasp on the universe. And I'm just a sucker for the Chosen One stories, which so many films use because it's just such a great story to tell. And that is the epitome of like the Chosen One. And I think it's summed up really well. And I think it's the Deathly Hallows Part 1. And these 2 characters are trying to figure out whether or not they're real and they're not like a disguised as somebody bad or whatever. And there's like, what is the last thing that Dumbledore said to you before he died or whatever? And he was like, Harry Potter's our only hope. And I just love the overarching, like, we have no other option but this boy right here. And then as you find out why he's the chosen one, and the connection between him and Ray Fiennes as Voldemort is one of the greatest villains on screen ever. And it's just an amazing universe. I love all the cast. Everything is perfect about the movies. I love them. And I love how each one gets darker over time. It's a fantastic journey. But yeah, the Harry Potter saga, that's my number 7.
That's a fantastic pick. I will bring it up later on.
Okay. Yeah. I thought you might. Let's go ahead and keep going then. We'll save your thoughts for then. Yeah. So number 6, Jack, let's hear it.
Yeah. My number 6, I know this is a movie Jacob has seen somewhat recently, is No Country for Old Men. Oh, so yeah, this is another heart pounding thrill ride from start to finish. The acting in this one probably stands out the most to me. You got Javier Bardem, who is just like one of the baddest villains, I think, in any movie, saying very little words, but just filling in all the blanks of why you should be very afraid of this man. So, yeah. And just like overall vibe setting is on point in No Country for Old Men. So that's my number 6.
Yeah. Are you you're a big Coen Brothers fan?
Not as much. Like this is, I wouldn't say overall. Like I like everything I've seen from the Coen Brothers, but I haven't exhausted their catalog. Right. But saying that, I should see more Coen Brothers films. But yeah, out of what I have seen of their stuff, this is definitely my number 1. But yeah, that's on my to-do list to watch more Coen Brothers.
I think that's a great pick. The only thing I'll say, Nick, really quick about No Country for Old Men is I watched it with Jack's dad, and it was just me and him, and it was at night. Was it the first
time you've seen it?
It's the first time I'd seen it.
What's the storyline? Do you guys mind sharing a quick synopsis?
It's Jack. You've probably seen it more, so just give like a quick little.
It's like a Texas detective story.
Okay.
It's. I'll pull it from Google so I don't mess it up. Edit this out. The search.
Nice.
But one of the things I was gonna say while Jack's looking that up is a very when I remember getting done watching that with my father-in-law and then thinking that he was gonna murder me. That's how it was at night and it was just me and him, and I was so spooked because one of the craziest
How long have you guys
things,
had been dating? Like how long were you dating?
It was the night, no lie, we watched that movie the night that I asked Maddie's parents if I could marry her. And so we watched that movie, I asked them, we had that great conversation. We watched that movie, and then I was leaving and I was like, I think he may murder me in his front yard. Just because I was that spooked. But one of the coolest things about this film is that there's not any music. There's zero music in the film. And I think that's what enthralled me. I'm not talking about like just background, like there's no score, there's nothing the whole entire time. But Jack, go ahead.
Yeah, so violence and mayhem ensue after a hunter stumbles upon a drug deal gone wrong and more than $2 million in cash near the Rio Grande. Yeah,
okay.
So yeah, it's just tension throughout. Like you're just kind of
literally. Now it makes sense as to why you were probably freaking out about it.
Yeah, dude. But it's an incredible film. Yeah, it's definitely one to go watch for sure. Great pick.
Okay, nice. Thank you.
All right, Nick.
My list is continuing to stick with these adventure type movies, and this is my Disney pick, and it is Pirates of the Caribbean series.
Oh man, an honorable mention for me. Love that series.
Okay. Yeah,
so good.
It's a great. I just put series as a whole. I think they're all pretty good. Obviously, like at some point, I was like, why are they still making these movies? But at the same time, it's understandable because it's pirates and everybody loves pirates. But yeah, it's got the full adventure is something that does have a good score. Yeah, for sure. Music in these movies are fantastic. I don't know. Can I talk about the CGI? I think that just everything in that movie, as long as that, just the way that they're able to show the tentacles on, Davy Jones and all those kinds of things, and just everything about the movie is you're going with the adventure with Johnny Depp, and I think that shout out to Johnny Depp. Good luck, bro. But I think one, you have the funness and the adventure of just the nature of the Pirates of the Caribbean and all the stuff that it brings, but you also have the funniness of his character. And I mean, his character speaks measures to, I think, how great the film was. I think everybody really just likes seeing this funny dude in the world that's supposed to be semi-serious, because pirates are stealing and they're always on like this mission or something that's pretty serious, and then you have the whole like Britain thing going on, and it's just like everything's supposed to be serious, and it's just like then there's this guy and he's not at all, but he's also successful, so it's like you cheer for him, you root him, he makes you laugh. But yeah, I mean the whole series is great. I don't know if I'd have a favorite one out of them.
I think my favorite would be the third one. I like the third one.
Is that At World's End? At World's End, yeah.
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 When I talk about the Pirates of the Caribbean movies, I'll just be honest. I think of just the original three.
Mhm.
And
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
don't,
Like somewhere along those lines.
yeah. And I know that they're going to continue to make them without Johnny Depp, but I don't think
It's
there's
just not going to be the same.
I don't think there's a lot of actors who have a grasp on a character that they play more than Johnny Depp does with Captain Jack Sparrow. Just one of the most iconic.
Yeah.
And I don't think people talk about it enough because it's so comedic, and they think that it's probably not, like, he didn't have to go like method and all this kind of stuff. But I think it's severely underrated, his actual skill and his ability for the way that he, treats that character and who he is when he's acting as him. So that's a great pick. Love those movies.
Yeah.
It's funny you mentioned the CGI too, because I mean, if you look at Davy Jones today, like he still stands up to any CG character in any movie or TV series that's out today. And that was 20 years ago. Like, I didn't realize it had been that long since
Has
Dead
it been
Man's
20
Chest
years?
came out, but it's
Jeez.
been, I think close to 20 years since that movie came out. So it's crazy, as much as technology has changed over the past 2 decades, that still holds up today. So yeah, those movies were, again, so important just from a technology standpoint too.
Yeah. Yo
Great
ho,
pick.
Pirate's Life for me.
That's
Great
it.
pick.
That's my number 6.
All right.
All right, we're on to your number 6.
Yeah. So my number 6, one of my favorite movies of all time. Obviously, it's on this list, and I have a Sorkin pick that is an honorable mention that I'll talk about later because I have a feeling it might be on Jack's list, but I don't know. But this movie is called Moneyball, and that is my number 6. And Moneyball, I will go ahead and say that I'm a huge Brad Pitt guy. Anything Brad Pitt is in, I'm on board.
Really?
I just think that he is an incredible actor, and he just has such charisma, and he commands the screen, and he's just such an amazing actor. And what he's able to do is really, really good in this film. And I'm going to sound kind of weird when I say this, but as much as I love Brad Pitt, I think what Jonah Hill does in this movie is actually more enthralling for me to watch, because I think Jonah Hill's performance as Peter Brand is really, really underrated. I think he got a nominee. I think he got supporting actor nominee. He definitely didn't win. I don't know that for sure. I don't want to say that for sure, but I don't think he won. But his performance is probably my favorite part about the movie, other than my actual favorite part, which would be Aaron Sorkin's writing in this movie and his screenplay. And it is an adaptation of the book, which I have read some of the book. It's kind of a difficult book to get through, because as the movie shows you a lot of the analytical side of baseball that Billy Beane does, the book actually walks you through those details and the different mathematics that he uses. And it's kind of difficult to get through. It's almost hard to call it a sports movie, even though it surrounds itself around baseball. But so many of the elements that he does, and I know that there's people have had issues with the accuracy of what actually happened and the portrayal. I don't care about all of that because I'm so enthralled in what is happening, and has some of my favorite scenes. And, when Scott Hatteberg hits that home run at the end of the movie that gets them the 20th game to break the record for the streak or whatever, it is such an amazing scene. And the fact that the movie ends kind of on a dour note because Billy Beane never wins is really, really good. But it has Sorkin all over it. And if you're a Sorkin fan, you know what I'm talking about. And just one of my favorite movies of all time. Definitely one that I go back and rewatch. I'll put it on the background. I'll just watch it constantly. But Moneyball is my number 6.
Nice.
That's a great pick. Yeah.
As a baseball fan, I remember being excited for this movie to come out, and then it's funny that you said it's not really like it is a sports movie, but it's not at the same time. And I actually only saw it once. I need to go back and rewatch it, but that's a good pick.
So good.
You got anything to say about it, Jack?
Yeah, I mean, anything Sorkin is just a dialogue masterclass because of his background as a playwright. So yeah, I mean, I feel like this is one of those movies you could almost listen to without picture and just listen, and it would still just be like gripping. But yeah,
that's a great point.
Yeah.
And Philip Seymour Hoffman is also really underrated in that movie, who I love and miss dearly. But he's kind of the quote unquote bad guy, but he's really good in that movie. Anyway, number 5, we're in top 5. Jack, let's hear it.
Cool. This is my series pick. And I actually realized this is technically a Disney pick because it's now Disney owned, but this is Indiana Jones, the series. So if I had to pick one, it would probably be Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade because of the father-son dynamic going on with Harrison Ford and Sean Connery. That to me is like a fantasy draft level casting of a father-son duo.
Wow.
But again, like this is everything good about blockbuster filmmaking. I mean, it's a fun adventure. It's popcorn, fun abounds. Great score, John Williams. Yeah, I mean, everything about this is the movie that made me want to make movies, or the group of movies that kind of ignited that spark for me. So it'll always hold a special place in my heart and are infinitely rewatchable. So I include, when I say the series, I probably mean the original trilogy.
But not the last one that came out.
With
Probably not Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, but I mean, we'll group it in if it's part of the group. But I'm interested to see where they take the series next. I know they released some images this past week of some teaser of what's to come in 2023. Well, it's a silhouette picture.
Yeah.
I wouldn't get your hopes up too bad. But
I have a confession, Nick, before you have any comments on it, and just please don't throw rocks at me, anybody. But I've actually never seen it.
Oh man,
So
I have watched parts of it as like I've just flipped through the TV and seen like different parts, but it's one that I understand the respect level of it and how it is, and I love Harrison Ford, and so I will watch them in order and what they are. And it's funny, the last time I went to Disney was with Jack just a few weeks ago, and we watched the what is it
stunt
called?
Show. The Stunt Spectacular.
The Stunt Spectacular for Indiana Jones, which was really cool. But I won't say anything about it because, like I said, I haven't seen it. But great pick.
Next time I'm in Georgia, we're cranking those out for sure.
Yeah, let's do it.
That kind of makes me sad. I love Indiana Jones. I'll talk about it later. We'll just say that.
Okay.
Good.
Well, Nick, why don't you do your number 5 then?
All right. So my number 5, this could be a Nick pick. You know how we have Jake take this. We also have Nick pick. So same thing, Jack. But yeah, so my number 5 is the Hunger Games series.
Oh, wow.
That's not, might be. See, your response might be. Made it into my top 5. I think one of the top reasons is because I actually read through the books. And I'm not a huge reader, so this was already a big deal for me to do in the first place. But it was because I loved the first movie so much, then I went and read all 3 of the books. So I was I got on the hype train with Hunger Games, and it just was cool to watch the movies and then kind of like critique it off of how like the books were. And I think they did a pretty good job of portraying the movies and the actresses and actors and just how the flow was. They didn't leave a whole lot out. But it was cool for me to be able to do that. Because I had family do that with Harry Potter, and I never read the books. So it was just kind of something that I kind of made my own with this. But yeah, no, I'm a big Hunger Games fan. I just love the idea of kind of this world that seems like it couldn't exist, but like you also can see it. You also can see it existing at the same time. It's like there's no way we could ever get to this sort of a thing, but it's like I guess it's possible because it's not like there wasn't anything that happened that was like magic or like it wasn't something that didn't seem possible.
It's kind of terrifying. Yeah,
it is. It's one of those things that's like, oh, like it kind of had that like Black Mirror effect, like the Black Mirror's episodes on Netflix will take something that like you think isn't possible too far off of what could happen in reality, but it actually can, and could if we let it get there. So I mean, it's in another adventure. Go figure that an adventure is on my list. And I think all 3 of the movies are pretty good because it's just going with the series. It's telling one whole story.
Yeah.
It's not like they're telling different stories throughout. But yeah, I was definitely going around middle school acting like I was shooting bow and arrows.
Katniss Everdeen. That's a fantastic pick, Nick. I love those movies. I recently watched them all through like all the way through, kind of without, as like seriously watching them. And I was enthralled. Those films are really, really good. And I love that story.
Sweet. Nice.
Yeah.
But yep. Hunger Games at number 5.
All right. My number 5, I just want to say that this was 5 and 4 is what I struggled with the most out of my whole entire, like switching them back and forth. Yeah. Because I'm going to go ahead and say my number 5 is infinitely a better movie than my number 4. Like there's no question. These movies should not even be put next to each other, but I love my number 4 pick so much, which I'll get to. But my number 5 is the Lord of the Rings trilogy. And so I'm actually in the middle of watching them right now. That's another one that I'll do probably once a year because it's a series, obviously it's a trilogy, but this is one movie, and Peter Jackson and really, Tolkien kind of, I think, wrote it in that way, but Peter Jackson definitely filmed it in that way because he filmed the whole trilogy at one time, and it's one continuous story that keeps going on for like 1 million hours long. Because I love the extended versions. That's kind of the only way that I watch it, is like the 4-hour versions. But this story and this movie and this universe is so down to the detail of how much there is. And I'm a follower of Jesus, so I love all of the metaphors and all of the parallels. It's really, really obvious, but it's really, really good. And just so many of the elements in the movies, and so many of the just kind of the journey that you go on literally as they're going on it. And some of my favorite, if we ever do like a podcast of like just some of our favorite movie scenes, I could almost make my entire list out of these movies, because there are so many. And I just have to say, Aragorn is one of my favorite fictional characters of all time. He is such an incredible character. And he's kind of the obvious pick when you look at, the Lord of the Rings characters, but kind of just the journey that's going on. Really, really underrated film score. I know that composer really didn't go on to do a lot of other big things. He kind of seemed like he hit his peak with Lord of the Rings, but it's really good, and the cast is perfect. And Peter Jackson did an amazing thing when he adapted those books into film. And so the Lord of the Rings trilogy is my number 5.
That's great. I literally cannot argue with that at all. I debated putting Lord of the Rings on my list. It didn't make my list. It's definitely an honorable mention series. I grew up watching them as well. It's just when I think of medieval or just anything along these lines, it's like Lord of the Rings paved the way for anything that's to come after it. Like there's nothing that's going to be able to capture what you picture elves or warlocks or like whatever the heck you think of when it comes to this world. Like Lord of the Rings set that up, and anything that's going to come after that is going to be almost based off of it. And fun fact, Return of the King is tied. I can't remember what it's tied with, but tied with some other, like 2 other movies, I think, with the most Oscar wins ever. And it's like 11 or something like that. I was a really big fan of The Hobbit that came out. I don't know. What was that, like 2016, 2015?
Yeah.
Did you not like it?
I just can't. It's like they stand next to the Lord of the Rings, and every time I watch The Hobbit, I just want to get to the Lord of the Rings movies instead. So they're a little bit more difficult for me to watch, but it's still Peter Jackson and it's still that universe, so it's still great. But to me, those original 3,
it just had so much hype, obviously being in the Lord of the Rings universe,
right?
And
right.
There was they could have messed it up, but it really. I mean, I don't. Think
it's the same. It's the same reason why I'm not very interested in the Fantastic Beasts movies, because it's like this. It's just not Harry Potter.
It's
I respect what you're trying to do, but I just want to watch what I want to watch, and so it's kind of very similar. But Lord of the Rings, it had to be. It could have been higher, probably. Definitely would be higher if this was a best movies of all time, because I think they're incredible. But that's my number 5.
Yeah, I saw the Hobbits were in Orlando this week. All the actors that played that, like Frodo and Sam and Merry. They posted a picture in Orlando this week, and I was like, you know what? I need to revisit those movies. So I think a rewatch might be in my near future.
Nice.
Yes. All right.
Forgetting the actor's name who played the Hobbit. Sorry, I'm not trying to stop things.
Elijah Wood.
Is
right?
that his name? I just know that he ended up going and acting in Sherlock, which is really great.
Oh, who
Like,
played the Hobbit? No, that's
yeah.
Elijah Wood is who played Frodo. The one who played the Hobbit, I can't remember his name, but
Yeah.
yes, he was in the Sherlock show.
Yeah, he made me become a big fan of him with that movie, and then going into Sherlock, I was like, man, this guy's the peak right now.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. All right, Jack, number
Cool.
4. Let's hear it.
My number 4 is Goodfellas. So I think it is by default is my number 1 gangster movie, and it has like every great gangster actor, I think, at least out of my favorites, including the late Ray Liotta, RIP. His performance in this is just so iconic and expressive, and that laugh and in the scene.
Is that where the famous laughing meme came from? Is from Goodfellas, right?
That's the laughing meme. So yeah, so R.I.P. Ray Liotta. A lot of people say my dad looks like Ray Liotta.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, this movie again, it's just like this is another dialogue movie that just like every scene is just so well written and so well acted. And was a movie that I didn't see. I probably saw it for the first time in early college. But yeah, really just like stuck with me. It's like, well, man, why did it take me so long to discover this movie? Because it's so good. So that's my number 4.
Nice.
That's a good pick. That's a good pick. Probably didn't make the homeschool movie marathon.
No, I don't. Again, definitely not the homeschool, and probably not the pre-college.
I shouldn't have said that, man. I'm just getting yoked on over here. And then I'm like, yeah, I wasn't allowed to watch anything but Gladiator, man. Let me tell you.
Gladiator, though. Family fun.
Yeah. Oh,
great.
Fun.
Great
I have
pick.
a lot to say about Goodfellas. Do you, Jacob?
No, I'll just for time's sake too. I'll save it too. That definitely, a gangster movie that is kind of on the Mount Rushmore of those movies. So that's a great pick. But Nick, why don't you go ahead to your number 4?
All right, my number 4 is yet another series, and it is the Avengers series. I felt like I was.
All right, so specify the Avengers movies, like like Avengers of Age of Ultron,
Age of Ultron, and
Infinity War and Endgame. Okay, sorry, I just wanted to make sure that you weren't talking about the whole.
No, I mean,
it's like, whoa, can we do 22 movies or whatever?
Low key, I mean, we said series.
Oh, we did. That's true.
No, that would be too hard. I don't think I'd be able to do that anyways. But yeah, Avengers. So we'll just say those 4 movies for sure. I was specifically thinking, whatever the Avengers movies that have come out since 2015, whenever it was. But yeah, so I felt like it was quite impossible to make this list without it. It's been the biggest blockbuster, at least in my eyes, for the past like 10 years. And whenever these movies come out, I'm super excited for it. I look forward to it. They leave us on big cliffhangers, and I've just become a big Marvel fan, honestly, in the last few years. And I think really what sparked it was the Avengers series, because I think that, I mean, really before then, like, I knew the superheroes. Yeah, cool. Hulk's awesome. Captain America's cool. But like then just seeing them all come together and then create these movies and go up against Thanos, just everything with the Avengers, I just became a big fan of, and I think they're great movies, and I look forward to them, and I wish that they won't stop. But the Avengers series comes in at number 4 for me.
Yeah, the Infinity War and Endgame will probably for a long time be my greatest movie theater experiences. Particularly, well, they were both really great, but in different ways, because my mind was completely blown and wrecked and destroyed after Infinity War. I remember walking out of that going, well, life is meaningless. It's all vanity. And then I remember leaving Endgame and being like, this is the greatest moment of my life. Like I've reached the peak of life right now. But the theater experience and Endgame coming right before COVID and the pandemic and all that kind of stuff, not right before, but the year before, was kind of a big polarizing shock when we went from that to not being able to see movies in a theater. But no, what they were able to do with those movies is incredible.
And I've mentioned this before in a podcast somewhere, but I felt like there wasn't a whole lot of great movies coming out in during that time. And I felt like it was like, that was the only thing I looked forward to. I don't know, maybe it was because I was in college and not watching a whole lot of movies, but I just remember looking forward to these movies for sure. And I just felt like there wasn't a whole lot else going on, and that they were really holding down the fort in the movie universe. And yeah, I mean, great experiences in the movie theaters for sure. But yeah, there's a lot we could say about that. So go check out a couple of podcasts with Mr. Josh Lorenz. But let's get on to your number 4.
Yeah. So like I said, I struggled with this movie being at 4 or 5. And as I also said, Lord of the Rings is much better than this movie as far as the way that it's made and just as the movie as a whole.
But it's your pick. It's your pick.
It's my pick, and I love this movie.
You wrote that list.
So this is my rom-com, and I don't know if you guys have seen it, but this is my favorite rom-com of all time. I watch it multiple times a year. I put it on the background. It's amazing. And my number 4 is You've Got Mail. And this was the pick that my dad made so much fun of me growing up watching this movie, because I've been watching it since as long as I can remember. I don't know how it happened. I don't know how I came across it, but I can remember, for the longest time watching this movie and just loving the heck out of it. And my dad, like I said, he'd always make fun of me because this is such a chick flick, and it is especially like the 90s chick flicks were like different than like the chick flicks nowadays. And so I'm also a huge,
more appropriate.
Yeah, probably. I'm also a huge Tom Hanks fan, and just what he's able to do in this movie. And the main note I'll say, and then I'll move on, because there's probably not a ton of people who have seen this movie, but I think it's great. But the movie is about, obviously, these two people who are chatting online, and they don't know who the other person is. They only know their online aliases. But there's a turning point to turn to what I think is probably the third act in the movie, where the male character, Tom Hanks, finds out that who he's chatting with, but the female character doesn't know, but they become best friends in real life, and they fall in love. And there's this turn, and how Tom Hanks makes this chick online fall in love with him, and then he makes her fall in love with him again, all over again in real life. He knows, but she doesn't know. But then at the end, she finds out that it's been him this whole time. And there's this line that I love at the very end where she tells him, she's like, I wanted it to be you, talking about the online person, and telling him that in real life. She's like, I wanted it to be you the whole time. And so it's just an incredible movie. If you haven't seen it, I understand why people, it may not be their cup of tea, but it definitely is mine. And You've Got Mail is my number 4.
So if she was talking to the dude online and talking to the dude in person, was she like cheating, or what was going on there?
I mean, you have to watch the movie to kind of understand the full story, but there is infidelity questioning.
I've heard of that movie. I haven't seen it. I'll go check it out. I actually don't hate. I'm not going to hate on you for the rom-com. I'm not.
You are a sucker for rom-coms. I know
that's
you
why
are.
I said I'm not going to hate on you.
He's a Jim and Pam guy.
I'm a Jim and Pam guy. No, I've seen a lot of them. Yeah, just like silly movies like that, like 50 First Dates or whatever. The chick flick like genre. I feel like it did kind of stop eventually. I don't know. Like
they're just different now.
Yeah, they're just different now.
That movie doesn't get made for theaters anymore. That movie now gets made for Netflix, and
which is sad,
that mid-range, mid-budget movie is slowly dying, I think, which is sad.
That's why I rewatch it all the time. I love it. But Jack, why don't you go ahead and do your number 3?
Cool. So to kick off my podium, again, another fairly recent movie. I think I saw this in the theater 3 times, which I do with very, very, very few movies. But this one was made to be watched in a theater, and that movie is 1917. So yeah, I mean, it's told as in like a single take, one shot approach, which is a very risky choice that could end up very gimmicky if done the wrong way. But for me, the story they try to tell here lends itself perfectly to that approach. And just from a technical filmmaking standpoint, everything that had to go into it to pull it off is crazy. The practical effects are awesome. Like they dug trenches almost a mile long to run the camera through. I mean, a lot of the behind the scenes that went into making this movie make it even better for me. But even just as a viewing experience, to crank up the volume to 70 and just put this on the biggest screen you can find is a fun ride. So yeah, 1917, top 3.
Jack, just for some of our movie buff kind of listeners that we have, just like explain really quick, because you kind of know a little bit about this, but explain really quick how difficult it is to do that kind of one shot type of filmmaking, and how much of an achievement, when it looks as good as it does in 1917, how much of an achievement that is.
Yeah, I mean, for something like this, I mean, you've got so many elements that in any kind of filmmaking have to come together just to make one shot, whether that's lighting or acting, performance, or in this case, special effects, pyrotechnics. There's so many things that go into making a perfect shot. And for this, you've got to have all of those things hit perfectly all together at the same time. For sometimes, like, they're stitching together multiple shots. So as you watch the movie, it looks like 2.5 hours is all a single shot, but in reality, they can still be up to 20 minutes long. I think the longest shot's probably like 20-30 minutes in this movie. And so like, for all of those things to go perfectly for that long is just it's the ultimate team sport, for all of these teams to be working in perfect sync, for all the performances to be nailed, for all the pyrotechnics to be perfectly dialed in, for like everything that has to come together is truly amazing to do shots of this length. It's crazy.
Wow.
It's almost like it's the definition of a one take wonder, right?
Yeah, it has to be the one take one.
Yeah.
Even they probably did multiple takes, but again, with special
effects. I have heard too that film was definitely made for theaters. Is just kind of the sound and everything, and the visual quality of it.
It's just such an impressive thing, because you don't, like, when you're watching a movie or you're watching something, you don't realize how many like different angles are actually happening, and how many different times, like, I don't know if this, you can correct me on this, but do they typically, like, when they film from one camera or one angle, then they do that over and over again, and then they'll like switch to the next one, and so they like have to react that scene over and over again for the different camera angles?
Most movies and kind of narrative TV shows are shot single camera for like sitcoms and so like How I Met Your Mother, so like that, typically that they might shoot that with more than one camera, but for most of your like cinematic feeling movies and TV shows, they're shot with one camera, because the lighting has to be a certain way, and the lighting is for that specific shot. So they'll turn the camera around, they'll actually relight for each side.
Right.
Yeah, okay. Exactly. So
that's what I thought, which is just another reason why that's an impressive thing for them to do in that movie.
Exactly. Yeah. To be able to do single takes, you're having to light for every angle that you're going to see before the camera cuts again. Yeah. And if you notice, like, every shot looks like, in every frame of that movie looks beautiful. So props to the 1917 crew.
Nice.
Wow.
Love that.
Wow. Great pick.
So we're on to my number 3.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Dang, we're moving along. All right. So my number 3 is the Indiana Jones series. I said that I was going to bring this up again.
You're an adventure guy, Nick.
Yeah. Literally, I think, my whole entire list is adventure.
Big adventure guy.
Big adventure guy over here. What can we say about adventures?
Yeah.
But Indiana Jones is coming in at number 3 for me. The third one is most definitely the best one. I'm not going to argue with that whatsoever, because I agree with that. And you alluded to the father-son duo. I'd also have to agree with that. It's got that wholesome, also, like, he's striving to make his dad proud of him, but he acts like he doesn't care at the same time, but he actually does, and he wants to make him proud. So you got that going on. I will say the one thing I don't like about Indiana Jones is how classic it is with, like, the girl. It's like there's a different girl in each movie, and it's like, of course, like, it's
like a James Bond movie.
Just a different damsel in distress.
It is. It's got the James Bond girl type feel. It's like, obviously they're gonna like make out at the end after he, like, pushes like a zombie off the off the cliff. But it's got everything you need in an adventure, and I think Indiana Jones is a classic. And I love everything about Indiana Jones. So it's funny that, I also mentioned with the Hunger Games, the second one not being that great. Or what did I say? Oh, Back to the Future, not the second one not being that great. I feel that way about Indiana Jones here. The second one isn't too great. Third one's better, most definitely the best. Yeah, I think that's all I gotta say. Indiana Jones coming in at number 3.
There you go, Jacob. Double recommended.
Double recommend.
Yeah.
I know. I get it. Yeah, no, I have to see it for sure. But that's a great pick, Nick.
Nice.
All right. My number 3 is I recently fell in love with these movies. It's a trilogy, and I had heard of them before, but I never really watched them. It wasn't until I fell in love with film, and then I really started paying attention to actors, that I saw these 3 actors. They were in a movie together, and then I watched the movies, and I was like, I literally watched this trilogy, and then I just watched it again, and it's just incredible. But my number 3 is the Oceans trilogy. So Oceans 11, 12, and 13. And I'm not saying the series because I'm not counting Oceans 8 because I don't think it's as good. But the Oceans trilogy is just one of my favorite works of art to watch, just of all time. I have on my honorable mention. So Steven Soderbergh is the director of these films, and he does another version of the Oceans movie, but it's like this totally different take, kind of, but it's a movie called Logan Lucky. I don't know if you guys have seen, but that's an honorable mention because it's very similar in style, and I love that movie. But the Oceans trilogy, like I said, when I saw that Matt Damon, Brad Pitt, and George Clooney were in a movie together, I was like, okay, well, this is at least worth watching. But I didn't really know anything about the movies. I didn't know that they were remakes and from the 60s, but I watched them, and the way that the story is told, and this is one of my picks, that the film score makes the movie so much better. Like some of the music is so weird and bizarre, but the way that the transitions go, and they'll be playing music in the background. I'm also a big montage fan, and these movies are full of incredible montages. And so that my wife, every time we watch a movie and a montage comes on, she like bumps me because she knows that I love montages. That's why I love the Rocky movies. But these movies have so many great montages and so many great scenes. And I love the gambling kind of bank robbery, Robin Hood kind of aspect of the whole thing. And I put this in my notes. This is the absolute truth. If Clooney, Damon, and Pitt starred in every single movie ever made, I think I would be okay with that, because the 3 of them together are just incredible. And it's an amazing story. And it definitely on my rewatchables all the time. I watch these movies constantly, have them on in the background. But Oceans 11, 12, and 13 is my number 3. I absolutely love these movies.
I have not seen those either.
Oh, dude. So good. I know I have.
What am I doing with
I don't
life?
have any room to talk, but you've got to see those movies. They're really, really good. And it's a great ensemble movie too, because it has such a great cast of characters, and how they each have a separate job that they need to do to complete the job that they're doing is really magnificent. And it's pretty much just George Clooney playing how I imagine George Clooney is in real life.
It's like Secret Agent vibes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
like
kind of. Yeah. It's a heist film for
okay.
sure. Is definitely. But that's my number 3. So
nice. That's a good
all right.
pick.
Cool.
Here we go.
Top 2.
All right, my number 2, and this is one that has steadily crept up my list for a while, and now sits at the number 2 spot. It's a classic, and It's a Wonderful Life. So, yeah.
I was wondering.
Let's go. We had another Christmas movie pick.
Yeah, that is technically a Christmas movie. So, but this is one I could watch year round. Like any other Christmas movie, I'm pretty strict on my Christmas movies, only from Thanksgiving to Christmas Day. And there's a strict window outside of that in which I do not watch Christmas movies. This one is the one exception to that rule. I could watch this movie any day of the year. It's a Wonderful Life. I mean, just classic cinema. James Stewart, my favorite actor all time. Like his voice for me is so distinct and has this like richness that just triggers nostalgia. I could listen to him read the newspaper, and like that could be an audiobook. Like
Jack, do you enjoy listening to your Uncle Mike do that impression?
Yeah, it's pretty spot on. Yeah. So,
sorry, little
my Uncle Mike does do a great James Stewart impression. But yeah, something like that voice for me just like is iconic. So, and yeah, I mean, a great story, a great message about appreciating like the little things and being thankful for the things that we do have. And yeah, I mean, great flick. So that's my number 2.
It's a Wonderful Life is a great pick. That's something that I do watch. I do watch that though only around Christmas. I will say I won't watch. You ain't watching Elf in July like me, bro. What's wrong with you?
Elf is the most flamboyant Christmas movie of all time.
Yeah, strong Christmas vibes from Elf.
No, that's awesome.
It's a Wonderful Life was one. It may have been the first time I watched it. I can't remember if you guys were there with us, Jack. It's recent the first time I watched it, because I'll be honest, growing up, I just always saw that as like, it was kind of like Gone with the Wind. I was like, that's kind of just like an old timey, like just a great movie for a different generation, but not for me. But again, I haven't seen it as many times, but the two main characters, their love story was the thing that I was captured by the most in the movie. I was like, this is really, really good. I remember like seeing it when they first come back together and then watching their progression and then the ending. I was like, oh, okay, this is why this is one of the greatest movies of all time. Like this movie is fantastic. So definitely a good pick for sure.
Got to go black and white version. We have the colored version and the black and white. I still prefer the black and white.
Nice.
That's how my dad is. My dad watches it every year and he's like, no, it's got to be the black and white. I'm like, okay.
Nice. All right, awesome. Nick.
All right. My number 2, I'm actually super excited for my number 2 because when I thought of this, making this list, this was honestly the first movie that came to my mind, and it is Secret Life of Walter Mitty. This movie is absolutely fantastic. It's maybe got the adventure feel, but not quite the same adventures that I've been talking about so far. One of the main things that I like about this movie is the music. The music is absolutely phenomenal throughout the whole movie. I have the soundtrack downloaded and I've been listening to it since this movie came out. But it's got this like hopeful in the midst of just normal life.
That's good
vibe. And you know, he's working. I don't have to start telling the whole story of the movie. If we did that, we'd be here.
Just
forever.
go watch it, people.
Yeah, just go watch it. If you haven't seen this movie, I highly recommend it. I know that it might be a Nick pick for sure because it's not something that's crazy. I don't even know if it's won any awards or anything like that. I'm mad
very
if it
personal
hasn't.
Pick.
Yeah, I could say that. But yeah, it's just normal guy in normal life that dreams about things happening, and then those things actually happen. And it's just got this really good feel good story. And I'm a big fan of the feel good stories. And I think that I also like the wallet that he has, and it's just got life's it's a whole story around the wallet. But anyways, a friend of mine also really loves this movie, and a friend of his were in this kind of same, that they've actually been on the podcast before. Josiah, this is his favorite movie of all time. And for Josiah's birthday, Luke got Josiah the actual wallet with the saying in it. And I was like, yo, what the heck?
What about
Where's
me?
Mine? Hopefully they're listening to this, and I'm sad that I didn't get one too. It was kind of before I was in the
truth comes out.
Yeah, the truth comes out. But man, yeah, A Secret Life of Walter Mitty is coming in at number 2 for me.
Good one.
Dude, I love that pick. That's cool that you have such a personal one so far up on your list. I've seen it before, and it's definitely a great film. So great pick for sure. I will be quick with my number 2 because it's already been mentioned, and also you can hear me talk more in depth about it on our Batman movies list, but that we ranked. But my number 2 is The Dark Knight, and this movie is.
Thought I might have made your list.
Yeah, it's one of my favorites, just of all time, obviously.
So you're just saying like The Dark Knight and not that trilogy?
Yes, I think they should be separated. I love the trilogy as a whole, but I think because The Dark Knight did so many things that stand on its own, like I'll go ahead and say I believe that this film transcended the superhero movie genre. And because it's almost not a Batman movie, and if you're like a super, comic book nerd, don't hate me, but this is like, if you don't like superheroes but you love movies, like you would love this movie because, like I said, it's this story, and it's almost not it doesn't feel like a comic book movie at all. And it's not only one of my favorite movies of all times, but I think it's one of the best. And so the main reason it's so high for me, and the main reason I watch it over and over again, is because Heath Ledger is one of my favorite actors ever. And I'm so sad that he passed away, because he's one of those where I think about like what he could have ended up doing and just how his career would have progressed. But what he does with the Joker in this movie is an acting masterclass. And like I said, I talk a lot about that in our other podcast. And also the interrogation scene in this movie, maybe my favorite movie scene of all time. And another film too that I watch over and over again, and I find something else that I missed before. Just an incredible story, a 3-arc journey for these characters. And it's just not your granddad's Batman movie. It's one of those films that, like I said, inspired so many great films that I think we have today. And at that time, superhero movies, Iron Man was just coming out in that same year. And so at that time, superhero movies weren't taken very seriously. I think they tried to with the X-Men movies and the Spider-Man movies, which they did well, but they still weren't like taken. But when this movie came out, I think people started understanding that, like, oh, these films can be really great. They're not just popcorn comic book films, because this film was incredible. So The Dark Knight is my number 2.
Well, and what you've alluded to before is that it obviously isn't your granddad. So it's a little bit, it's darker than what we're used to. And I think that also kind of shook up the world a little bit, maybe because we hadn't really seen a whole lot of dark side of a superhero movie.
Right.
And I think that The Dark Knight accomplished that
quite literally.
Well.
Yeah.
Accomplished that well. But yeah, I already talked about it a little bit, but Heath Ledger also, I think it's sad, obviously, what happened with him, but the same feel of Johnny Depp playing Jack Sparrow, and how it's like, there's just nobody else can play this role besides this guy, or nobody else is going to be able to comprehend and act the way that they've portrayed this character. He most definitely did that, and probably arguably better than how Johnny Depp was even able to capture Jack Sparrow.
Well, but the difference is, we probably won't have a rebooted Jack Sparrow, but unfortunately they will continue to make different Jokers in different universes, which I love the Joker, so I'm not totally against that, but none of them have come close to me. I love what Joaquin Phoenix did. I really respect it and I love it, but to me, it's a take on what Heath Ledger already did before him.
Oh yeah, for
and
sure.
It can't be touched, in my opinion. My favorite performance of all time. So it's my number
That's a
2.
great pick.
All right, here we go.
All right, number 1.
Right.
I know what your number one is, Jack.
Yeah, if a lot of people, this will be no surprise if we've talked anything remotely about movies before, but my number 1, drum roll please, because a drum roll is appropriate for Whiplash. So Whiplash is far and away my number 1. It's held that spot since probably the day it came out.
That's amazing. I love this movie.
Yeah, I saw it, and when it came out in Athens at the Art Cinema, and I was drawn to it because it's a movie about drumming, and I played the drums, so let's go see the drumming movie. And
was it what you were expecting?
It was not what I expected.
You're
at all.
like, heck no, I'm not going to go do this.
It's a jazz drumming movie. So
isn't this J. Jonah Jameson?
Exactly. So it got awards for editing and sound design, and so many iconic scenes, especially the one where J.K. Simmons throws the chair at Miles Teller, and the "Not My Tempo" scene. That's pretty iconic.
Don't you have a "Not My Tempo" shirt, Jack?
I was gonna say that.
I think I did at one point. I don't think I still have it. So R.I.P. the "Not My Tempo" shirt. But so many just memorable scenes in this movie. Great acting performances across the board. The thing I think that stuck with me at the time was, it's certainly an extreme example, but just thinking about like the choices you make to chase a dream, the sacrifices you're willing to make to chase a dream. Again, this movie takes that to a far and away extreme level, but I think even at the time when it came out, I related to it on a lot of personal levels, besides it just being a drumming movie as I initially intended. So Whiplash for me is is, and I think will be for a long time, my all-time number one.
No, that's an amazing pick. I actually went back and watched that movie recently. But I think it obviously it's extreme as to how much time and effort it actually takes to do that. But it does take a lot of time and effort to be at this level of musicianship. And I think that it does a good job at almost portraying, you know, how much commitment it does take. But obviously, again, I know that's a little too extreme. But I mean, it also, that feel of just your music professor being a little like on edge or being strict is like, it is a thing. And I think it was just cool to see that, like, oh, some of this is real, but also it's not at the same time. It's a movie. But everything about that movie is amazing. That's a great pick.
Yeah, I actually started out my college major as a music major, and me and Nick went to the same college. And Nick, you were around a lot of the music majors. Yeah. And you started, I forgot. So it kind of hit a little bit
for a year.
It kind of hit a little bit home for me because I can remember seeing students go into these little rooms with a piano, and they would would practice all the hours of the night, because that's literally what it took. Like, it's such a demanding major, and it's very difficult. But I watched that movie for the first time recently because it was Jack's favorite movie, and I was like, oh, I've got to see this. Let's see what all the fuss is about. And there's definitely a lot of fuss. My mind was completely blown. But the scene where he tells the girl, like, how obvious and straight up he is with the girl, where he's just like, you're gonna get in the way, and I care about this more, so I'm sorry. But it's just, I was like, what am I watching? And then the car wreck scene, and when he, you know, turned my page, it's crazy. It was a crazy movie. I didn't feel good after I watched it, but I respected what it was.
Yeah, well, because it doesn't even have like a great ending. You're like, oh dang, they're gonna make up, and then it's like, psych.
But I think that's, those looks that they're giving to each other is really, really cool. I loved that for sure. Yeah. But that's a great pick, Jack.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, Nick,
No,
I'm
amazing.
really, really curious about what your number one is going to be.
Because
I have no idea.
Wait, yes, you do.
I do?
I mentioned it earlier. It's a Harry Potter series.
Oh, okay. That's right.
Another adventure.
Yeah,
another adventure. Man,
no,
I didn't
great
even realize making this list that it'd be adventure. Harry Potter series. It's funny what you said about Maddie going, which, Jack, I don't know, maybe you were there too, y'all family, but going to the theaters, and for those midnight showings, like this was the peak, man. Harry Potter was something that we'd go to these midnight showings, even being a little kid, and being able to go and do this. And it was just like, just the whole, everything about just even seeing people like dressing up, going to the theater. It was like, this is like what it feels like to go to like the movie theaters, and like just the peakness of it, just seeing like a line of people ready for this movie.
Yeah.
But the Harry Potter series, I think, has done an immense amount of impact in the creative world, and JK is phenomenal. And like you said, she's obviously had her hands in the movies, which was super cool as well. You know, I mentioned that my family had read these books earlier. Previously, I mentioned that. But they always said the same thing, kind of what I said about Hunger Games, that maybe there's like something missing here or not there that they wish was there. But yeah, so that's a cool thing. I think that just seeing books come to life in a movie, I think Harry Potter is definitely one that's very well known for that. If I had to pick a favorite,
no, don't, because we'll do that podcast one day.
Okay, yeah, that's true.
Yeah, don't pick your favorite, because I purposely, I have a favorite as well, and I purposely didn't want to say it because I don't want to spoil that.
Well, thank you for cutting me off.
We take ranking way too seriously, by the way, for anybody who's listening. No, dude, you can't argue with that. Those movies are amazing.
Yeah.
Most definitely. I mean, I think you already kind of hit on it a little bit. Voldemort is one of the greatest villains of all time, I think, right up there with Darth Vader. I think the whole Chosen One, and everything that they've been able to do with just even bringing it to life. I don't know if you guys have been to Harry Potter World before, but I went a few years ago for a graduation gift, and that was amazing. And yeah, I'm just a big Harry Potter dude, and
Can't wait to dive deeper into that one day when we do that pod.
Yeah. I'm like, what can I say and what can't I?
Yeah.
Did you guys watch the HBO documentary? The one that came out in January?
Most of it. Yeah.
I did. I watched it. It was really
and you
cool.
Talk about seeing actors and actresses grow up with a movie or TV.
Totally.
Like this is also, we watch these kids grow up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%.
Bringing the Truman Show to life.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. So my number one, I wonder if you guys have seen it because it's not a very popular film. But the way that I kind of look at movies and I look at my favorite movie of all time is I kind of say, if I was on an island and I could only take one movie to watch for the rest of my life, and if every other movie ceased to exist, like what is the one movie that I would want to keep on the planet? And this is that movie. It's very nostalgic. It's very classic for me. But my number one is a movie called A Knight's Tale. And so this movie was not super popular. It was actually critically not taken super well at the time. It's 2001.
I have that on my honorable mentions.
Really?
Yeah.
So this movie is not only nostalgic, but it means a lot. I guess this may be the definition of nostalgia, but it means a lot to me because for some reason, my dad loved this movie and he would put it on when we would go to his house on certain weekends because my parents were separated, and he would put it on because he loved it. And then for some reason, it made me and my older brother, we would just be glued. Like we both just loved it. And then I never stopped watching it. And it's Heath Ledger. My top two favorite movies of all time both have Heath Ledger as the star. And it's because I think he's that incredible. But this is the movie that I could watch over and over again. And I do watch over and over again. I own it. And this is the movie. It's like, if I can't, pick a movie or figure out what to watch, I'm like, okay, well, I'll just watch A Knight's Tale again. And Maddie gets annoyed because she has to see it all the time. But her favorite movie is Good Burger. So I don't let her get super chatty about that.
It's on my honorable mentions. It's a McRee family pick right there.
That movie is awful. But A Knight's Tale was just one of those movies for me that I think is really underrated because I think the story is really good. And I think it's a movie that has every single genre just about within it. It has romance, it has action, it's a period piece, it has modern music in it, which is kind of one of the things that a lot of people think is dumb, but I think is really hilarious. And I think it's really cool in the movie, but it also has this really good dramatic and underdog story type of thing to it. And I love how this like unassuming guy who has no royalty in his family comes out, and he just practices and he becomes the best there is. And I love the line where he's the main guy, Heath Ledger's character is jousting, and the villain of the movie is watching him because he knows he's going to have to face him, and he's standing with this guy, and the villain asks the guy, he's like, how would you beat him? Like, how would you beat him in a jousting match or whatever? And the guy goes, I'd beat him with a stick while he slept. He was like, but on a horse and with a lance, he was like, that man is unbeatable. And that's what ends up happening. William ends up winning. And then the scene where he is knighted by the prince, because his whole thing is that he doesn't have any royalty and he has to fake his way to get there, because you have to have royal blood to compete. But then he ends up becoming royalty. And it's, oh man, I'm giving myself chills, and I've seen this movie a gazillion times. I love this movie so much, and I recognize it's not one of the best movies ever, but it is definitely my favorite and probably will always be my favorite for sure. So A Knight's Tale. Have you guys seen it?
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
That's a good pick. I think it was one that was not well received critically when it came out, but people that grew up watching it, like people our age, like still hold that movie in high regard. I think it holds a special place in a lot of people's hearts just because of like the timing it came out. And yeah, I mean, it still holds up. You can still watch it. It's still good.
For me and my dad and my brother, talk about quotable movies, we will randomly quote A Knight's Tale all the time, and it always makes us like fall on the ground laugh. It's just one of my favorite. It is my favorite. So
it's a very memorable movie for me too. I watched it a lot growing up. You just talked about all the good morals of it, but I think that it also just brought a great comical feature to it.
Oh yeah.
And yeah,
it's hilarious.
It's a hilarious movie, and it's
Mhm.
also, you know, got the good story at the same time. So
It's the movie that made me fall in love with Paul Bettany too. Paul Bettany's performance in that movie is like so underrated. It's not even funny. But I also, by the way, and Maddie knows this because she's the only person I've done it in front of, but he gives this speech to introduce William, and it's kind of this long, and I have the whole entire thing memorized. I
Do
can do
you
the whole
really?
entire. Yeah, and the first time I watched it with Maddie,
When he hypes him up in the
yeah, when he hypes
like,
up the crowd, I can say the whole thing. And the first time I watched it with Maddie while we were dating, I was standing there and I was like, okay, I'm gonna do this, and please don't leave me after I do this, but I just want to show you that I can. And I did it word for word as he was doing it, like with the accent. And she, of course, I don't know what she really thought of it, but it meant so much to me that I just love that scene, and I love that moment. And he's so great in that movie, and the whole cast is great, and just really good.
Yeah.
Yeah. The scene that makes me cry too, because I talked about emotional reaction, but the scene that makes me cry is the scene where he meets back up with his dad. The ending never makes me cry, but the scene that he meets back up with his dad, and his dad is blind and he can't recognize him until he like feels him, and he says, you know, those words and stuff. Has he found his feet? It's so good. So good.
Yeah, I don't remember it being an emotional movie, but that's cool.
But it's in there though. It's got it in there. It's so good.
That sure makes it a good pick.
Yeah.
Well, sweet.
But hey guys, that was the list. We hope you enjoyed. Jack, why don't you just pick like 3 or 5 or whatever. If you have any honorable mentions that almost made your list, just fire those off.
Yeah, I'd say the Star Wars movies probably just off my top 10. I think viewing them as a series, it's hard to get them into that top 10, but still huge impact on me. Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory was one that, again, was pretty high up there. And yeah, throw in Good Burger, a McRee family pick there. Keenan and Kel, let's go.
Hey.
That's my bad movie pick.
Nice.
You're
bad movie, but good to me.
Yeah, definitely. Your guilty pleasure.
Yeah, there we go. Guilty pleasure pick.
Nick, do you have some honorable mentions?
Yeah, a couple of honorable mentions that these two really just missed my top 10, and it was Jurassic Park and Star Wars. We didn't mention Jurassic Park at all, but great series, and they're still trying to go places with it. And then I have Lord of the Rings, LOTR, and then I also put Sound of Music on there.
Nice.
Sound of Music is a good classic movie.
I think the closest one that I had to my top 10 was recently is a recent movie, Knives Out. It was actually me and Maddie's first date.
That was a really good
going
movie.
to see that movie. And I think that movie, and I think it's because I love Clue, and that's kind of a take on that kind of story. But I think the story that Rian Johnson tells was really, really unpredictable and really, really good. And Daniel Craig should have won an Oscar.
Agatha Christie Poirot movies?
No, I haven't.
Like Murder on the Orient Express and Death on the Nile. You might
like
those two.
I've heard of those, but yeah, those are those same type of movies.
Similar kind of vibe.
The train one's better than Death on the Nile. I don't watch. Yeah.
Gotcha. I'll have to check that out. I didn't put any Disney or Marvel movies on because I thought of my favorite like Marvel movie, and I couldn't put it above any of the movies on my top 10, but the Avengers movies and they're all great. I love those movies.
Probably put Spider-Man on there.
Spider-Man is great. This is a little guilty pleasure-ish, but National Treasure, those movies. I love those movies. Those are really good.
Nick Cage.
Yeah, Jack, The Social Network is the one I thought that might have been on your top 10.
It's up there. That would definitely be honorable mention, and it's been in my top 10 at various points. But,
a movie called Warrior is the UFC movie about the brothers.
There was a war movie I was thinking of that I almost wanted to put in, but I couldn't remember it quite enough. I think it was it Dunkirk or something like that?
Oh, Dunkirk. That's another Nolan one.
Yeah, that one's a great one.
And then the last couple, I'm only going to say this one just for Jack because Jack isn't a fan of this movie, but Man of Steel is one of my favorite movies. He doesn't like that movie, but I love it. And
Superman's
also
trash.
No, also severely underrated movie, That Thing You Do was also close to making my top 10. Love that movie as well. And then I'll leave it at that. I have a bunch of other honorable mentions, but for time's sake, guys, thank you so much for listening to our top 10 favorite movies of all time. Jack, thank you so much. You brought such an awesome flavor and just some great insight to this list, and we really appreciate having you on, man.
Most definitely.
Thanks for having me, guys. Really enjoyed it.
You, man.
Yeah, we
sure.
will
Anytime.
we'll have to get Jack on for a Disney episode one day because he literally
Definitely.
lives and breathes it. So
Oh, yeah.
Jack, we appreciate you, man. And Ranker fam, this has been so much fun. Again, please rate and review us if you haven't done that already, and check us out on our social media platforms. But we will see you next time. Nick, you got anything?
Catch you in the next one.
Catch you in the next one. All right, see you guys.